Hey there, hey. It's your girl, Deja, host of Black and Wild, the podcast. Welcome back to another episode where I chat with my friend, Rizalyn, whom I have known for 3 years now. We met at a BIPOC retreat here in the Eastern Sierra that was put on by one of our mutual friends. Ever since then, I have followed along on Rizalyn's journey with plants on social media. She is currently studying horticulture, and although she's always had a love for plants, the path to a career or something like that involves plants has not always been clear for her. Listen in to learn about Rizalyn's first experiences from a young age gardening in her family's backyard with her grandpa to all kinds of varying plant related jobs and internships that have all contributed to the direction she continues to head in. For all my plant nerds, green thumbs, and gardening heads, this one's for you. I do want to add a quick note that your girl is having some technical issues during this conversation, during the recording that I had with Rizalyn. So just focus on her. She is graceful and on point through it all. Let's get into the episode.
Rizalyn, thank you for being a guest on Black and Wild. I'm really excited to chat with you more, get to know you better. And I find that although I always feature folks that I know that I consider as friends, I always find out something new about your background and kind of what inspired you to pursue the activities that you're involved in and the line of work that you do. So thank you for being on. And I recently had reached out to you to be on the podcast and was thinking about what voices have I not heard from yet, or what stories have I not been represented. And I was thinking about I hadn't worked with somebody who has worked with plants before, who has done gardening, and that's something that I think is really important to touch on because that's one of the ways that we can connect with the space around us is just being familiar with the flora and fauna that we're interacting with, whether that's in our backyard or if you're hiking, whatever that is. And so I think that your story and the way that you move through the world has been so inspiring for me, whether that's when I first met you to now when I follow along on social media and what you get up to and how that's inspired your creative outlets as well. So I know we'll get into a little bit more of that here shortly, but if you'd like to introduce yourself, share your pronouns, anything that you'd like to share related to the podcast, I'll let you do that now.
Okay. Hold on. I actually have some notes just in case.
That's okay.
But hi, I'm Rizalyn. I also go by Rizzy or Riz. And my pronouns are she, they. And I'm super excited to be here because I met you like 3 years ago and I have not seen you since then. And I also like see the things that you're doing too. And I'm like, oh my gosh, wow, so cool. Okay. So I guess like for me, like my relationship to the outdoors kind of started like in two different ways when I look at it. Because first, you're mentioning gardening. So we had like a huge backyard when I was younger. And I feel like that was a lot of my exposure to the outdoors was planting things and like going to Home Depot and getting like the little flower packets and things like that. And then the other thing was like road trips. Like we just went camping a lot. So I feel like I had a lot of like exposure and things to the outdoors. And I got to kind of revisit gardening later in my life because I didn't do much with it when I was like a teenager. And then when I was like 19, 20, I kind of like revisited, started gardening again at my grandparents' house. And I got to fall in love with it like all over again. And that was really cool. And then it's just like, it's just been such a journey. I feel like I've been all over the place with like plants because once you start in like one area of the outdoors, it's just naturally kind of like there's so many different ways that you can go. Um, but I feel like as far as my kind of experience, it's been like everywhere. Like, because I started I started getting into plants, and then I was like, ooh, wow, like herbal medicine. I want to go that route and learn about like how to use medicine. And then that ended up taking me to Oregon to do like an internship with herbal medicine and then at a homestead. And when I came back to LA, because that's where I'm from, I was just like, there's no like homesteads out here. I can't really do that.
Mhm.
So I ended up working like a florist job and stuff. But yeah, I feel like I've worked like any way that I could just to like be connected with the outdoors, which worked out because right now my job, I'm like a groundskeeper part time, which is totally cool with me because I'm trying to focus on school a lot right now. I'm like working towards my horticulture degree. So, because I feel like I've been so up and down with like school and like what I want to do and where I want to go. But I'm like, I think that's going to end up somewhere. So, yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on making it work. Once you find your passion and then you realize, okay, this is what I want to do, whether it's like I really want to make sure I'm spending time doing this outside of work, or this is also what I want to do for work as well, and making it all make sense and then also making a living off of it is so
Mm.
tricky to figure out. So
Making a living off of it is like
genuine.
so the crazy part because
Yeah.
when I like first realized like I pivoted to like native plants, like for
Mm.
my florist job, I was making like $15 an hour and had to drive to Koreatown. And it was just like so much. And then I ended up wanting to like pivot to native plants, but nowhere's hiring. So I ended up getting like a weed trimming job to pay the bills. And I'm like, this is the worst job ever, but I want to do this internship that is paying me nothing. So I kind of have to just do it.
Yeah, the sacrifices you make sometimes too, to know like, okay, I need to invest in this so I can get the experience I want and need to lead me into a position that I actually love to do and want to do. And that's
Mhm.
part of the process. Like the I think there's a beauty in the journey too and the messiness sometimes where it's not always clear and black and white. Like you see the end goal, but to get there, you have to kind of get creative of what those steps look like in the in between. But then a part of that is like it's also beautiful in its own ways because all of that's going to help to get you where you're meant to be. And sometimes you realize what your original thought was or goal in mind, like maybe needs to be adjusted a little bit because of what you learned along the way. So I think it's all beautiful. I want to backtrack and can you share a little bit more of how we know each other? Where
Oh my
exactly did we meet
gosh.
3 years ago?
Yes, I was so busy rambling, but yeah. Yeah, so we met at the BIPOC seminar
Hmm.
in the Eastern Sierras, hosted by our mutual friend Bree, and that was 3 years ago. So, but that was just like such a cool experience for me because I had mentioned to you earlier, I came from a completely kind of like different camping experience. It was really cool still. It was just very white centered. And coming to this like BIPOC seminar was nothing I had ever been to before. And it was just so beautiful, so intentional. And just seeing like so many other folks of color there in the outdoors, like it really just like I was just like, this is so beautiful. Like I never want this to end. Like so that was like that's something like I always think about, just like going back to it because yeah, and I met so many amazing people like you there. So
Yeah, well, thank you. I can't add anything else. I remember we did share a campsite, which was really neat. And I'm glad because, and often sometimes we were carpooling together too. So I think like you guys were the folks that I got to get to know a little bit better because we had a little bit more time outside of the actual scheduled activities that Bree had for us. But
Mhm.
what was really special is that we were all kindred spirits and not just because we are people of color outside, but also because we were friends of Bree. We all were like somehow connected to her. And we think when you have a mutual friend, you're like, we've got to have something in common. And I think that it was really neat. And I think all of you are such like beautiful people inside and out. And everyone contributed to what that weekend was like, not just Bree's planning, but we all of us showing up in the special ways that we can uniquely because of our own backgrounds is really what made that weekend so special. On top of the amazing work that she did to create a space where we all felt like we could be safe and show up authentically as ourselves. When we don't always feel that way in the outdoors, especially in spaces where we don't always see ourselves represented, like we don't feel safe to. I was actually talking with a friend about that yesterday too. Is like when you're with people who look like you and come from similar backgrounds, you don't have to really explain yourself, right? Like you can just say how you're feeling and what your experience has been like in these spaces without judgment, without having to explain why you felt the way that you have or why it's so meaningful for you to be in that room with other people that look like you when you know you don't usually see that. It's like there's just so much that's unspoken that we don't have to describe when you're in a room with people that look like you. So I'm really glad I got to connect with you. But can we also go dive into a little bit more of like your childhood and upbringing? You said that when you were younger, you had been introduced to gardening and had gone on some trips outside. So what can you give me some examples of what that looked like and who was involved in that? Was that family, like your community, friends? Give me some more background.
Yes, I love to talk about this. So, my gardening experience, I mentioned like going to Home Depot and getting like the trays of flowers. That was like a huge part of my memory. Like, my grandpa was like really involved in everything with the garden. We were like a lot of tomatoes, I remember, and just like the kind of like I guess mainstream plants that they have at Home Depot, we would just like get them. He would be like, pick out whatever you want. And I would always get like snapdragons because I like to stick my finger in their mouths. And so there was that. And we had one of these little, it was like, I don't know if you've ever seen these before. They're like a trowel, but it's like a circle tube thing. And you stick it into the dirt and it just like you twist it and it lifts up the dirt.
Oh
And you could
yeah.
like plant. Yeah, so I like have so much memories of just like using that over and over again to like plant things. And then the other cool thing that we would do is we would go to the cemetery to visit my great grandpa, like his grave. And something my grandma started doing, my great grandma, she would, instead of like buying new flowers, she would just go to the trash can at the cemetery. Because every week, like, there's a certain day of the week at the cemetery where they just
You
throw
know,
everything away. It doesn't matter if it was put there yesterday. So they just throw a bunch of flowers away. So she would just like go into the trash can, get some flowers and like clean it up, water it, and then just like put it on her husband's grave. And yeah, I was like, oh, that's really smart. And as I got older, we just started like taking them home. And something that me and my grandpa would do together is like we would like try to doctor up the plant. We would prune it and we would deadhead it, like take off the dead flower heads and just like try to give it a second chance at life. So there was one year where our front yard was just like full of trash cemetery plants, like a bunch of chrysanthemums and just like things that you see at like the gift shop or something. It was just like so full of that. And like looking back at that, like I really love that we did that so much because like one, we're giving plants another life, and two, it was just like fun to like see what comes back to life and what dies. Like how far gone is this plant? Like, can this still be saved, or like should we throw it away now? So that was really fun to do. And then the other thing was like the core memory I have was we went on this huge road trip from like Paramount, where we lived, all the way to Missouri because my great aunt had passed away. And we were driving out there to meet my great grandma. And like as a kid, time is just like, it's so different. Because I could have swore we were like on this road trip for like 6 months. Like it was so long. In reality, it was probably like, I don't know, a couple of weeks or something, or maybe even like one a week. But it just felt like we were gone for the longest time. And in all that time, like we were carrying this trailer on the back of the Santa Fe. And it was just like so many memories of like going to truck stops and brushing our teeth for the night and going to bed. And we did like a lot of camping too. And I just remember like I really loved camping. Like we would just sit there and like have our hot dogs over the fire. And I was already like such a naturey kid because I spent like hours in my backyard and with the flowers and eating tomatoes in the backyard. So I think naturally I was just like already like loving to be outside. And yeah, so I still really love camping. Yeah.
That's really special. And I love the repurposing of the flowers. Or like there's especially knowing because I had heard that too about flowers being removed after like during a certain day of the week, no matter how new they were or not. It's like
Mhm.
everything gets cleaned out. And knowing like, oh, we know this and we can just reuse what's still also just because plants look a certain way doesn't always mean that they're dead. And so I think it's so neat to learn about that and learn about the processes and like the cycles that plants will go through and what their needs are if they have a certain appearance and maybe they just need a little extra love, whether that's water or some nutrients. And how neat to learn that from such a young age. I mean, that's really special. And especially
Yeah,
I'm
because I feel like it really taught me like just because it looks ugly now, doesn't mean it's gonna be ugly forever. Like just give it some water, some love, some attention, and it'll be fine.
Yeah, it gives a little bit of love. I'm so glad to hear that you actually had a space growing up where you could have a garden. Because when I think about the LA area, I'm like, I don't know too many people who had that. I mean, there were maybe some folks who had a lot of house plants, or maybe they had like a balcony or something they could have some potted plants on it. So I'm glad that you were able to have some kind of like green space and be able to play in the dirt. Because I think grounding is so important, and it's really, especially for kids. I've found that, especially when I've babysat like really young kids, like babies, as soon as I take them outside and as soon as they touch the ground, it's like they're immediately calm. And that sounds like that's like what that time gave to you as well.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Like at one point in our backyard, it was me and my older sister and my older cousin.
Yeah.
We would just like dig holes in the backyard, like huge like tunnels, like underground. And my grandpa would get so mad, like these are gonna collapse. Like you're
Yeah.
gonna die. Stop doing this. But it was so fun. I was like, I love being in the dirt.
And also like all the different insects that you come across. I used to love finding like the roly-polies or like the different worms and finding praying mantises. Like I loved that. And I'd always try to bring some of them inside to be my pets, but they didn't always work out. But you're bringing me back to those memories of being a kid, like enjoying playing outside and just like exploring this little world around me that felt so big when you're that
Yeah.
little.
Oh my gosh. It was like our backyard was like this jungle. And it's still like my mom still has the house. And like it is really big. And I feel like as a kid, I was like, this is a jungle. Like it has all these different sections. We had so many different plants in the backyard. And it's been through so many different phases throughout the year. I feel like something that I've learned as a gardener is just how much gardens can change because I'll plant something there. And then a few years later, I'm like, actually, I just learned that this is a terrible area to plant this particular plant. So now I need to move it. Or like, I don't like that I put this trail here. Now I want to move it over here. So it's just been like really cool to like see the garden change through the year as like I learn and I grow and I change and implement those things into the garden. Yeah.
Ooh, it sounds like a very symbiotic relationship.
Mhm.
Oh, I love this so much. This is fun. I digress. Well, I'm glad to hear that you've had some experiences outside and also things that I mean, I don't remember many other people. I'm from the San Fernando Valley. I don't remember hearing other people really going on road trips or going camping. Or if we did, it was in places that you weren't really going out into the wilderness. It was like places that were still either within the city boundaries or in a place that you had close access to like a grocery store or something like that. And so I'm glad that you had those opportunities, whether it was in your backyard or going on that trip with your family. And what would you say if you had to think back on that time of like what's something that's really stuck with you, like the lessons that you learned, or how did that really shape the person that you've become today, other than just like gardening, but were there some values that you felt like that you took with you from that time that you still carry with you now?
I feel like for me, it is just like I really think back to that time so much, like when we were camping and like being outdoors and just like what that meant to me as a kid. Like that was magical. Like nobody else in my class was like got taken out of school to go camping for like however long it was. And I came back and everyone was like, "Where did you go?" I was like, "I was camping. I was in the car. Like I was in Missouri." So I feel like just those like outdoor experiences like really, really shaped me. And I didn't get to go camping for like a while. I think I started just recently camping, like maybe a few years ago again. I was like, I miss doing this. Like, I want to go outside. And so now, one of the other things that I get to do is that I'm also like an outdoor instructor. So I get to take kids camping and I
Aw.
get to see them like have like make some of those memories and have these cool conversations. And let me just say, some of the kids today, they were so freaking smart and just like, I'm like, wow, they're just so smart. Like when I was in high school, I was like, I was dumb. Like I'm like these kids, like we're gonna be okay. Like things are okay.
That's
So
cool.
yeah, I think the main thing that I learned is just like kids need to be like outside and like see the world.
Sounds like you learned that you need that too.
Yes.
As you were saying, you're going camping and as well, and you're also always welcome to come visit. I just want to throw that out there,
Oh,
but
thank you.
go back to room when I'm happy to go camping with you or go you can do whatever you want to do. Just open invitation whenever. Yeah, it's funny because I didn't have a ton of memories outside when I was growing up either, but as I started to have some of those experiences as an adult, I was like, wait a second, I really enjoyed those times. And I started to connect back with my younger self that felt so alive. And so it connected with myself, but also in the place I was when I was outside. And like
Mm.
he said, it brought me, and it's been really neat to see that with kids too. I feel like I like get to live through them even more again and again as I have those memories come back to life, seeing those kids experience their own journey like that in their own times. That's really neat. So how you said that was happening when you were younger. What was this time frame? How old were you?
Sorry, it kind of froze.
That's okay. I was like, yes. Did you get to hear my question? Or do you want me to
It like caught up and said it like really fast. What was the
oh,
question?
I was wondering, I was like watching your face, but then it froze for you too. And I'm like, I asked, I said, what was the time frame when you went on this road trip? And also like when you were doing a lot of the gardening in that earlier part of your life, how old were you?
Oh, I specifically remember for the road trip, I was in second grade because there was just like so many things going on that I like cut my hair off that year and I just remember they're like, "What's going on with you?" Like yeah, so I was like, I think I was 7 in
Okay.
second grade. So yeah, I was
Wow.
young. Yeah, I feel like when I was planting too, I feel like I was probably 4. So I was really young. I was like wandering around in the garden doing stuff. And what's crazy, it's like I feel like my gardening today is a little different. Like I'll try to grow food, I'll grow native plants, but it was just tomatoes and then random plants, like tropical plant and yeah, I was pretty young when all of that started happening.
Those are such important years. Like those are your foundational years as a human being, where you really that sets the tone for where your values are and like what you learn as far as what you like and what you don't like. And I think it kind of gives you an idea of the kind of person you want to be when you're older, whether you realize it in that moment or not. I think it really shapes you then. So what happened? Sounds like there was a little bit of a break. In how did you get back to finding gardening again? Like, was there a moment that happened in the class that you took, or was it like a family member again that reintroduced you, or did you have like some of these memories come back up? How did you get back into that and being outdoors and learning that's what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I think in so all through like middle school and high school, I just like really didn't do a whole lot. I did like a lot of walking. Like I walked a lot to school. And then when I got to high school, I started walking on trails more. Like there was a when I was living in like San Pedro, like there was this park called Peck Park, and I would just like walk around there for like hours because I just wanted to be like walking around. I would walk my dog, and so I feel like there was always like that little interest. Maybe it wasn't like as intentional, but then I think what actually solidified it for me was moving back into my grandparents' house. Like that was the thing because I was living with my dad for like a few years during my senior year of high school. And we had a small strip of garden. It was mostly concrete in the backyard. And I was always like, oh, yeah, I could do something here, but what am I going to do? And like I wasn't that interested, but moving back to my grandparents' house, I was like, okay, like I'm gonna start planting. And I have pictures from like when I started gardening again, and I was like, oof. Looking at them now, I'm like, oh my gosh, what was I doing? But I was just like, I was doing what I learned like as a little kid, just like 20 years later. I was like, okay, yeah, doing the same thing, right? You go to Home Depot, you get the flowers, you put them in the ground, that's it. Like so that was definitely it for me. Like, I was just so curious. And like, also, my grandpa was such a person that was like an initiator. Like, he would just do things, he would just have projects all around the house. So I think being around him was like, it really like helped me get back into that because he would also do things like, oh, like I really want to get the tree trimmed. I wish someone could trim it for me. And I'll be like, okay, I'll do it. So I'm like, all right, I'll do it. And he would sit there and watch me trim the tree and stuff. So yeah, definitely moving back into my grandparents' house and my grandpa being like such an inspiring person to like be around.
You got, for lack of a better term, you got back to your roots
Yeah,
essentially. Going,
my childhood home, yeah.
oh, that's so special. And when was the moment where you had the idea that you wanted to pursue a career that had something to do with gardening and plants?
I think it was probably later, like a year later, actually. My grandpa brought up the idea when I was like maybe 19 or 20. He was like, oh, you should go to school for horticulture. And I was like, no, I'm not gonna go to college. Like, that's ridiculous. Why would I do that? Like, I like plants. I don't need to go to college though. But like my grandpa, he saw that I was interested in plants and he would watch all these YouTube videos like, oh, look at how they propagated this plant. Like, you should try to do it like this. And he bought me like this whole tray of succulents. So he was like, you could propagate these and then you can sell them. And you can like, he had this like bit, like I said, he was an initiator. Like that was his thing. He was just like, okay, like here's A, B, and C, what you can do. And so even at that point, I did not know I was going to go this route. I didn't know even what I was doing at the time. I think I was like working at the club or something. I was like, I don't know, I'm trying to make money and like just get by, really. So I think it was probably, I just started like, I think around the pandemic, I started getting into herbal medicine. And I feel like a lot of people did around that time. They were kind of find like natural ways of healing themselves and stuff. So around that time, I started getting into herbal medicine because I feel like I was always kind of witchy. Like when I was a kid, my favorite movie ever was Scooby Doo and the Witch's Ghost because I was like, I love these witches. Like I love the part where she was like grabbing the herbs and making a poultice. I was like, that's so cool. Like I want to do that. So I ended up kind of just like looking up herbal medicine internships just because when I'm like interested in something, I'm just like, let me just really get into it. So I started looking at internships. And then this is the phase of my life where I was just like figuring out how to get around plants. And it kind of just turned into me like just turned into a career, I guess. So I went to Oregon to do my internship because all of the internships I was finding was costing money. And I was like, I'm broke. I don't have money or anything. And I really wanted like the hands-on experience because that's how I learn, which was also hard to find at the time because we were still in the pandemic 2021. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm going to Oregon to do this free internship. They had like a live-in position. So I was like, let's do it. And I did that and I came back and I just started like volunteering, like going to the Compton Community Garden, like getting around there, like sharing what I learned. And from that point, I landed a florist job because I was like, this will make money. And it's still like having to do with plants and stuff. And I think I mentioned that earlier, working the florist job. But
But you left off as that you said you'd mentioned earlier the florist job, and that's where.
yes, I mentioned the florist job. And that was kind of like my stepping stone into like, okay, like this is my first like paid job, like working with plants. And so I did that. And I did that for like maybe 5 months. It was really hard. It was a lot of commuting and waking up early. Florists wake up super early. I didn't realize that. So, and after that, I ended up leaving that job because it was just not cutting it. I wanted to move on. I wanted to make some more money. So I ended up working at a trimming farm, just doing trimming. And actually, at the time of the florist job, I started like learning more about the flowers. And I think at that specific time, I was learning about foraging because there was like foraging was like so huge around that time. Like everybody was foraging, everybody was getting poisoned from eating things they weren't supposed to. So I was like, oh, I want to get into foraging. I want to learn like what grows around me and stuff. So then I started learning about native plants. I was like, oh my gosh, like I didn't realize California, like native plants were a thing. I thought plants were just plants, like I don't think of where they grow, they just grow where they grow. So that was like a whole revelation for me. And then, so after that, I was like reading more about it, learning more about it. And then I ended up getting the dispensary job and I worked there for a while. And then the opportunity just like opened up like a native plant internship because I was Googling, I was like, native plant internships, like, where are they? Where can I find one? So I found one and I like just left my job and just started working at a job that or internship. I was making nothing. It was very painful. But I was like, this is where I want to be at. So that's kind of like when I realized like I wanted my career to like go that route. Yeah. So starting at like, okay, so the site that I worked at was in Long Beach. And in Long Beach, there's really not like a lot of green space. I feel like it is changing a little bit. Like sometimes they'll have like parkways or something where it's like native plants or something. But as far as like urban green space, there's not a lot of like accessible areas. So that's where Willow Springs is. It's a native plant restoration area. And I applied there. I was still living in Paramount. It's not a far drive from Long Beach, but I started there. It was like 3 months long. And I really wanted to do it. And I mentioned that it was like no pay, it was $0. It was really just like you're getting experience and you're getting familiar with like California native plants. But I knew that it was going to lead me somewhere. And I think like up to this point, I really had no like I had only ever worked a job for like the longest like 6 months ever because I'm like, okay, I'm bored. Like I want to do something else now. But I feel like this is really able to like this was like all of the things that I wanted to do. Like it was outdoors. It hit like the physical aspect for me because I really just loved like being able to like use my body. Like it just felt good like working outside in that physical way and getting to like just work in different terrains and stuff. So, and just really thinking about like the longevity, like this is something that I can do for like a long time. Like I had just learned about that native plants were a thing like not too long before that. And with that came like the realization of like native plant habitat destruction. So I was like just thinking about it like from that conservation like standpoint. I was like I this is something that I really want to get behind and advocate for and really just like help bring these green spaces like back and help like these urban environments like have more native plants and stuff. So yeah, I was like, I really want to do this. However, like by any means necessary, like I want to be outside and I want to advocate for this.
How, what, this was 2020 or 2021 when you were doing this?
I think this is 2022. Like it was just 2022. It was like February 2022.
So at that point, I mean, I'm assuming for this internship, were they telling you of like what careers or job options you would have through getting this experience? What did you have in mind as far as, because yes, that work is really important, but as we all know what's happening right now in our country with this administration, we're definitely seeing our and just being attacked. We're seeing groups being attacked right now too, and there's a lot less jobs that we were seeing that were becoming really prevalent when it comes to advocating for the protection of natural places and plants. So at that time, do you have an idea of what that field could look like for you as like far as pursuing that?
I honestly had no idea. I was like, just really all I had to compare my job to was the other interns around me and then the mentor that was kind of like overseeing like what we were doing. So that was really like all I had. Like I never really like worked in conservation before, so I didn't know like what the options looked like. So I felt like I was so brand new into this, and there wasn't really like, oh, like you can go this way, you can do this. I was really just seeing like the restoration aspect of it, and I was like, okay, like there's this. So that's like good enough for me right now. I think, yeah, like thinking long term or like ahead of time, I just knew I was like, it's something along these lines. I think eventually I'll get to what it is because I knew where I was at the time. I was like, I'm not getting paid to do this, but I know it will lead me to somewhere where eventually I will get paid. So that was my mindset at the time because I think, especially in Long Beach, there's not a lot of opportunity, and probably like with most like urban environments, there's not a lot of opportunities to work like in native plant restoration. I think that's something like really rare in urban environments, and also to get paid just paid in general and like get paid a livable wage. It's like so rare to be able to do. But thankfully at the time I was like living at home with my mom. So I'm like, this is cool for someone like living at home with their parents, you know? But like as far as any other person who's like an adult trying to get into that, like me, I was like 21 at the time or 22. So I'm like, okay, I'm young. Like I got this. I'm not really like thinking too much about like my career right now. I think I'm like doing this, but like imagine someone trying to like make a job change like into this. It's like, what the hell am I getting into? Like, how am I going to survive pretty much?
Oh, yeah. I think it's so true when you find a start to get an idea of okay, I want to do this. I want to make a living off of this, but how? What does that even look like? And I remember as you were describing what you were kind of clocking from the folks that were leading your internship, I remember doing the same thing in my internship, being like, okay, so this person was able to live in these places, or like they have a family and like they're living in this place where we're able to do this kind of work. Like, okay, these are the options. Okay, this is the other places where they've lived and like where they've made this work in other ways. And then also learning, okay, there's certain education that people ended up pursuing to like make it where they could argue for a higher wage. I'm just like starting to put the pieces together of like, I know I want to do this. How do you make it possible? So how did that lead into you? Were you working for the city or for the county when you started doing some of the gardening for them?
I was able to work my way up to working like into a city position. So I started as an intern unpaid, and then through like a job agency, I was able to like work a position. There's so many loopholes, but I was able to like, I'm sure you know how it goes, but like I was able to work there through a job agency for like another 6 months or something like that. And then after that, my hours ended with that. There was like another, like, I guess, pilot program that was happening. So it was called like the Youth Climate Corps. So through the Youth Climate Corps, I was able to get hired through that. And it's like still
Yeah.
work at the same place. And with all of those came like, pay increase. So I was like, okay, cool. Like this is cool. This is good, you know?
Right.
And yeah. And it was cool because I think like the Youth Climate Corps, like that program started out of like the pandemic, just like trying to get like young people jobs outdoors, because we were coming out of the pandemic. There's a lot of like remote happening, there's a lot of people inside. And there's just like a lot of like younger people didn't really get like the opportunities to like explore and like do all those things. So I think like I ended up getting hired through that. And I think I worked through that for like another 6 months or so, or something like that. And then after that, I think, so I was able to work through the city for the Department of Sustainability. So they ended up hiring, and I applied for it and I got the job, which was so cool because I was like, finally, like, this is it. Like, I've been working towards like security for like the last year now at this point. And like, they take government agencies, I just think it's normal for them to take forever to hire, like the hiring process. So for a couple months there, I was like pretty bored. I was like, I don't know, am I gonna get the job or yeah, so I ended up doing that and I worked there for a few years, like 3. So yeah, that was like my first like legit job. And like I mentioned before, like I had not worked like an actual job for so long before. But I was just like, I really want to be part of this. Like, this is so cool. I love being able to like come to the park every morning and work in the nursery and like clean up the park and make sure it's clean for like the kids that come through and like everyone who is coming through. And we got to have like so many events and things like that. So I think it just like hit so many different areas for me. And yeah, so I think the reason that I left was because I think it was just kind of like getting to me. I was like, I want to do like a little bit more. I was like, in that time, I was just learning so much. Like, I was continuing to educate myself because I think the institution I was at, it really doesn't, offer like a whole lot of professional development. I was like, I really want to learn more about, like I just want to learn more and it's like have more opportunities. I really, really wanted to work like nonprofit. I was like, I really want to work in a nonprofit. I've been working with a government agency for a few years now. I want to like, I had just been feeling called to it. So I didn't find that right away when I left my job. I basically just like ended up, so I started my own landscape business, and due to lack of experience, it flopped. I think it was just like such a huge change going from like working in like landscape restoration, working in such a large, like 14-acre area, like, and all this stuff. And then going to like working in people's yards and making estimates and doing this. And it was just like, I was like, I'm in over my head. I don't know what I'm doing actually. So then I got a job with like a legit actual like gardening company. So I started working with holistic gardening company, and they did like a lot of like native plant work, and I was so grateful for that job because it saved my ass like financially. And it was like such a good area to be while I was like finding, I guess, like where I wanted to go next, because I liked what I was doing, but I know like physically, I was like, I can't really continue to do like so much physical stuff for the rest of my life because my knees are already hurting and I'm
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
like this is real physical. I think I'm gonna need to find something else like in the middle, maybe, if like I'm just thinking about longevity here. So like I'm super grateful that I had like the landscape maintenance job. I learned so much. And then I kind of just decided that I wanted to focus on school because at the same time I actually got that job, I applied to be an instructor at Outward Bound Adventures. And I went through my training with that. And I was able to like take kids outside and go on camping trips. And I learned so much. And I was like, actually, yeah, like I want to go this route. Like, I feel like a way for me to be able to just do that is like kind of go to school. Like, I want to be, I guess, like it's me proving something to myself because I really hadn't had like the school experience yet. And I just want to. I feel like all this time that has passed, it has helped me be able to like find what it is more like that I want to do, like where I align the most with. And I'm like, okay, I definitely want to work outside. I love education. I love teaching. I love like working with kids and I love like getting my hands dirty. So, like, also working with like Outward Bound Adventures was like, they're just like so cool. And like, they're just like such a cool agency to work with. Like, and yeah, so I haven't been able to like do as many trips kind of like since I started school. But yeah, that's kind of just like my focus right now. It's like I really want to be able to get at least my associate's degree and see what I can do with that. Because yeah, I mean, right now I'm working with Earth Lodge, which is a nonprofit in Long Beach, and I'm a groundskeeper there. And it's part time. I get to do that while I go to school. So I'm happy right now. Like, what more can I really have at the moment? Like, I feel good.
Well, thank you for taking me through your journey and how you got to where you're at today. Because I just got, as you were continuing to tell your story, I kept thinking you just stayed the course. You didn't know how things were going to work out, but you stayed the course and you're like, no matter what, I know I need the experience. No matter how I'm going to get this, I'm going to seek that out. And if I need to live with my mom or like whatever, but leaning on that support and community that you have so that you can continue to pursue what you love. And then also, I love that you were able to realize that things weren't serving you anymore, right? Like you had found that job. And I think too, when you were young, I remember getting my first like government job and thinking, you always hear having a government job is stable, it's secure. You usually have benefits. It's like it's
Hmm.
with that because you're usually gonna have some pension later and like retirement. That's what you think like you feel like you need it. But at the same time, there's some rigidity that comes with it. And I think it like you're almost limited with how much you can grow because it's the government. There's so much red tape. And you're not always rewarded for having certain experience or ideas. Like you're just asked to do the bare minimum. And that's kind of it. And there's not much room to really grow or explore some more. And I'm glad that you were able to realize that that wasn't serving you anymore. Like it served its purpose and that was great. And it's great to have that experience. But all these experiences sound like it gave you better ideas more and more of what you're seeking and want to do. And I'm really excited for you because you kind of took the non-traditional route to get to school, right? I think a lot of people were pushed to like you go to college right after high school. It's like you just check those boxes one after the other. You don't really thinking if it makes sense for you. And also, who at 18 years old, 17, 18 knows what they want to do? I changed my major so many times, and I'm glad I didn't go to directly a four-year university because I definitely would have failed out. I wouldn't have had the opportunity to explore and try take different courses to see, well, is this the major really for me or do I want to do something different? And it seems like now you're so much more focused and you're able to go back to school with like a clear idea, at least with like the field you want to work within because of the experience that you have. So I think that that's so beautiful and awesome. So right now, what is your exact major?
So right now, I just started like at the beginning of the semester, really. Right now, I'm just taking my general eds. So just like my English and my anthropology and all of that. But I'm going back to what my grandpa suggested when I was like 19, 20, and I'm doing horticulture. So it took like, I don't know, like 7 years, but here I am again. I was like, if I would have started it when my grandpa suggested it, I don't think I would have finished it at all. But I'm like, I think now I can actually like appreciate it because I think like for me, school, just like high school, it was hard. Like I wasn't the best in school and stuff. So I think now that I've like gone through all of the like kind of life experience already, I think that it's easier for me to like appreciate it now.
I was wondering, I kind of asked you this earlier on what values you got from gardening from a young age, still pursuing some kind of career that's related to gardening plants. Why? Like, what is your why? What does that bring you as to why you want to continue to pursue this path that has been taking you all over the place as far as different roles and internships? Like, it's not the easiest, but you're sticking to it. And I'm just curious of like, why? Like, what is that? Some like joy, and not trying to say it in a mean way, but
No, no, I get it.
I think it could be enlightening to hear like what's kept you going.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think for me, it's like I am just like a service-based person. Like I really like to feel like I'm helping in some way. I think for me, what was lacking when I did have like my government city position was like I don't really feel like I'm directly like helping as many people as I can in this position. Like, and that's what for me felt like I was really lacking. I was like, I really want to like be able to like reach more people and have more of these like connections that are like genuine and like I can just like help and be of service in any way. So I feel like for me, um, gardening and like working outdoors is like a really like it hits all those areas for me. Like it's healing, it's like about community, and I think it's also like helping out like yeah, really just like being like a community-based person. Like I just want to help and be of service. And like just so I went to like a neighborhood meetup like last week and I'm like, I don't have really anything, but like here's my beets and it's like my rosemary smudges and just like if anyone needs it. I think that when I first started getting into like or learning about native plants, it really helped like change like my purpose of like why I'm gardening. Like, what is it that I'm actually doing here? Like, I can grow like all the tomatoes in the world, but like, what does it even mean if they're just like going to waste? So I think I find like a lot of purpose in like the fact that I get to like share things with others. Like not just knowledge, but like, like here's some seeds if you want some poppy seeds to like spread and things like that. And just like having things to like grow for the birds and stuff. So I think just being outdoors, it just like hits all the, I've already said this, but yeah, it just hits all the like service things. Like I just want to be like a public servant and like help people and help the land and help the animals. And I think that's really motivating for me. And if I didn't have that, then yeah, I don't really know.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. I was chatting with a friend the other day and we were talking about like getting going back to what is your why. And I think you have an idea and then you start to pursue it, this vision that you have. When you're in the middle of it, it's so easy to get lost and forget your why and remember why you're doing what you're doing. But it almost seems like you've had that as a guiding light for you throughout this whole process. And I was wondering, what has your experience been like when relation to gardening and plants? I mean, have you had people that are really welcoming and inviting that are willing to teach you? I know you had your grandpa, but outside of that, what has it been like to pursue these opportunities to gain more experience and find community in this field?
Yeah, I think generally, I feel like gardening people are so like usually willing to share like information, even if you don't ask really. But like, oh my gosh, I feel like for me, it's like really easy to like kind of just connect with people. And I think like honestly, for me, like even like with like people and stuff, I was like, I don't know, like, but like I've been getting a little bit better at it because like at the last like neighborhood meetup I went to, there's like this older white man, and I was like, oh my gosh, he has hummingbird sage. I'm gonna go ask him why he has it. And so I feel like for me, it's like kind of like a universal, like, oh, like everyone is, kind of interested. But I think like definitely I've come across people that don't really have like the same kind of like I guess everyone has like some different intentions or values. And like for me, that's kind of like strange or like kind of like treating the land more as like a thing instead of like an actual living being entity. And like I feel that especially with, I think there's like quite a few people in like the California like Native Plant Society, or like that are just like, oh, like I only know plants by like their botanical names. And I'm like, okay, like it's like what value does that really add? Like it's just a European name, like it's really nothing. So I feel like coming across that sometimes it's like a little weird. It's almost like, oh, like you don't know the scientific names of the plants, so you don't know like as much.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's not that deep. Like I think common names are just as important as scientific names. If anything, they're more important because they hold stories. Yeah. And it's like for me, like in my family, like we had nettle growing in our backyard for years, and I never knew that was the name. We called it itchweed. But for me, it's like we still call it that because it's like it's the story of it, you know? You touch it, it makes you itchy. So yeah, but I think yeah, there sometimes is like also what I've noticed like a separation, like just of like people in their different worlds. Like there's horticulture people, and then there's like compost people, and then native plant people, and then people that are like super into succulents. And sometimes it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like I wish everyone was more like connected, you know, like I feel like that's kind of like I'm like in between of all of those things a little bit because I'm like, yeah, I want to grow food, but I also want to like have a lot of native plants. And okay, like I have a couple of like ornamental plants, but like they're full, you know? So yeah, and it's like, but it's just so interesting sometimes, like seeing that separation. Like I went to a compost meetup some one time, like a few years ago, and it was like it was weird. It was more like it was so weird. It was more like a compost gathering, and people were like sharing facts about compost and plants and things. And I'll like always remember this. The speaker or the facilitator of the event, he was like, "Oh yeah, I've been gardening for like 30 years and stuff." I was like, "Okay, like cool." So I had asked him, I was like, because I heard him tell like some other people that were asking about native plants. They're like, "Oh, like what's some good like native plants to grow?" And they're like, "Oh, you don't really want to grow native plants because like they just get messy and they just turn brown and they just die." And I was like, "That's the craziest thing I've ever heard." Like, I can't believe you've been a gardener for as long as you have, and you're telling
Have
people,
an opinion. Yeah.
yeah, you're telling, encouraging people to not plant native plants because you think they're ugly. So I was like, okay, bet. So I was like, hey, I have a question. What type of like evergreen natives do you like recommend for planting? And he was like, honestly, like I don't really know any native plants and stuff. Like you should go ask like Theodore Payne, like they're a good nursery, like just referring me elsewhere. And I was like, wow, like I've never like I can't believe like there's like such that huge gap between like you or like a gardener like actively for like so long, more than longer than I've been alive. And you're like, oh yeah, native plants, ugh, they're ugly. Like that's crazy. That's crazy, sir.
It's funny hearing you say that, but I'm also not surprised because the more I get into like different activities, I find there's so many different layers, right? But I say it to say there's so many different niches, and like you can just go down so many different rabbit holes. Within that, our lives are very silent. At the end of the day, we're like, don't we have a common interest? And aren't there ways that we can still learn from each other? And you would think that regardless of what you're doing, folks can still appreciate something, even if it's different than why they're interested in that specific activity. So I'm not surprised, but it also is like disheartening. It kind of hurts to hear that you're experiencing that too, in that like your field, because I hear that that's like it's across the board, and that's really frustrating. But I appreciate that from what I can tell, you're trying to be the change that you want to see. And like, I never get that feeling from you at all. Like, you seem to be like, you want to create community, you want to have conversations and like learn something new. And I think that that's something that is really helpful. We need more of that because there's a lot of rigidity that you can find from older generations that are just everyone wants to stick to what they know.
Mhm.
Something that you would like to see change in your field, what would that be? Just kind of branching off of what we were just talking about. Like, if you're, I mean, if you're like your dream world, what would you like to see as far as like taking place, if there's some representation or a kind of culture or a vibe that you'd like to see in like the gardening community?
Yeah, I think it's more of like that integration that I was kind of mentioning because I feel like sometimes there are those like separate worlds, like and everything. And I just wish that like there was some way that everyone could just learn a little bit more of something or like
Yeah.
I don't know, like even like for people who are like really just like stuck in just learning this one thing. Because I feel like sometimes like just those people who are just kind of like stuck in that one thing that could honestly like just be wrong and how much like they spread it into other people who are like maybe just learning about something. It's like it's that really. And I feel like for me, I think honestly when I was getting into native plants, I feel like I was like a little, extreme in the ways where I was like, I hate invasive plants, like they're crazy, like they're all over the place. But I'm like, okay, like I've seen a lot, about being more intentional about that and just like reframing how we look at invasive plants. Like they're just plants, like let's not be all hateful to them, like they didn't ask to be here. So
I know. I definitely, as a naturalist, when I learned more about invasive plants, I remember just like ripping them out of the ground and just being so aggressive, and then thinking, okay, they didn't choose to be here, and like even though they can be harmful sometimes to the ecosystem, like what can I do in a way that's going to actually be proactive rather than just reacting in the moment, and like long-term changes that I can implement that can be beneficial. Is there anything that are you like actively doing something to kind of create this vision that you have at this moment?
that's
Not
a
to
good
put
question.
you on, but just curious.
I guess. Yeah, no, I mean, just existing, I guess, just doing what I just keep doing. I feel like as far as like actively like doing things, maybe I could be doing more, probably. I feel like I'm always trying to be like open to like what more I could be doing, or if there's ways that like I'm being ignorant. I feel like I'm constantly like just like reminding myself to be open to change, like with how I was like viewing invasive plants like a few years ago. Like I've changed, like I've realized where I've been wrong. And I feel like just like realizing, sometimes like where you're wrong or where like things can change and like being open to change is like definitely a good place to start, like within yourself. So I feel like I'm just like always trying to like just do that because I never want to be a person that's like, I mean, and it happens where I'm just like so judgmental about something that I'm like, I'm never going to change. And then 30 years later, I'm like, native plants are terrible. Like, I'm no.
There's much diversity there.
I think honestly, it depends where I place myself.
Okay.
Like, like I'm thinking about things like of course, just like yeah, I think it depends. Like, okay, so I'm thinking about the seminar I went to before the camping seminar that I went to before I went to like the BIPOC seminar with like all the people of color and those folks. I'm like, okay, like it kind of just like depends, I think, on the intention, really, like of the setting. And also like when I like went to Oregon for like my internship studying the lady there was like, oh my gosh, she was so she was such an interesting person, okay? Because I was there for Juneteenth and she was like, this is the most people of color that you're ever gonna see in Oregon. I'm like, cool, good to know, Daphne. Like and but I think it's honestly like the pockets, and I really just love to find the pockets because even in like the whitest of Eugene, there's still like I still ended up finding like cool like queer gardeners that are like, hey, do you want to come over here? Because they see me interning with this white woman, and they're like, we have our community garden over here, and I'm like, yeah, I would love to visit. Like, oh my gosh, like please. And yeah, honestly, I think like I think depending on where I place myself, I do see me. But of course, sometimes it's like, like I think certain groups draw more of like certain audiences where other people like feel more comfortable being there. Like there was this one like online kind of gardening class I used to go to, and it's like predominantly like I don't really see myself there ever. But I think just like based on like honestly where I live too, like I see like a lot of people like me too. So I think like when we link up, when we go to like these events, like neighborhood meetups, like come through, it's like so easy to like build community that way. So especially with like working with like Outward Bound Adventures, I was like, it was like, dude, it was like the BIPOC field seminar, like on steroids. Like everybody there is like, oh my gosh, it was so cool. I was like, oh my God, there's like so many Black people here. Like, this is like a Black organization. And I was like, oh my God. Like, so I think the outdoors is just like, it's just like so cool, like seeing people like who look like you because you have those similar experiences. And it's just like, yeah. So when you do find like those communities, it's like, oh my God, I never want to leave. I want more of this, you know?
Wow. I totally get it.
Yeah.
Love that. I was wondering, are there any, it sounds like you have to be really intentional, and I'm figuring that out too with just outdoor spaces and how I choose to spend time in the outdoors. Is that like we are out here? I was talking with a friend who were saying there are definitely hiking groups that exist, especially more in urban spaces or in areas where you're more likely to see more diversity. But I was wondering, do you have any ideas of voices that you feel like are lacking or not very well represented when it comes to gardening? Or the outdoors in general.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was just like thinking about like when we take kids out camping and stuff, and it's like we work with like predominantly like kids of color, and when we take them to these outdoor spaces, and they're like, we sometimes have to explain to them, like this area like doesn't get a lot of like children of color, so yeah, sometimes we get questions like, "Are you guys lost?" and things like that, or people will stare and things like that. I think that really sucks, so we have to like actually explain that to kids, but it's like just the history of public lands. And going off of that, I think that people who are missing more from the conversation is honestly like kids. Cause I feel like sometimes, like a lot of the times, like when I go to, I don't know, just like when I think of like kind of just like working in like outdoor spaces or like, I don't know, like community kind of just like outdoor events, like sometimes like I feel like it's very like American kind of culture to just like, oh, leave the kids at home, like, no, the kids need to be outside. The kids need to like be here too. And they need to see all of these things and be a part of these conversations. Because I feel like when I do like have conversations with the kids and like when I see kids that are like, oh my gosh, like they're so like smart, like they are like just like really like so intentional and just like have such like amazing ideas, like it's because like these kids are not like separated from these conversations, like their adults like bring them into these conversations and they're a part of this. And I when I do see that, like especially like at my job, like I work at like a QT BIPOC like spiritual wellness center. So it's like when I see like kids that do come through like with their parents or their adults, it's like, wow, like they're getting all this experience too. Like they need this healing also. And especially if this is the generation that's going to like kind of save our asses, like they need to like they gotta be here. They gotta have these experiences and be a part of these conversations because what else are they gonna do? Like they're not gonna save the world like being at home. So yeah, I think definitely it's like it's always gonna come back to like the kids being represented in these spaces.
Well then. Especially having been a child that experienced that who you are today and being involved in the career that you're in, if it wasn't for those experiences as a very young child. And I love hearing how this is all kind of coming full circle for you. Thanks for sharing that. Those are one group that I haven't heard. I've asked that question to every guest, and you're the first person that said children.
What?
It's just being outdoors in general, but it's so funny because
Yeah.
you're the first person that said that. And when you said that, I thought, duh. But I think representation, we're always thinking of race or we're thinking of other like physical identities. And I think that that's the one thing that when I'm trying to think of how I can be more inclusive is that I want to include old and young voices too. I want everyone to feel welcome, not just certain groups that are able-bodied. Where Last Child in the Woods. Have you read that book?
I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah, I will have to send it to you, but it's I'll text you the title and the author when we get done. But it's essentially about why it's so important to have outdoor schools and how, like, because there's been a disconnect with kids spending time outdoors because there's this idea that it's scary and unsafe. But it's like, where did that come from? Because there's so many of us that remember when we were younger playing outside and our parents being like, yeah, okay, like you're with so and so, okay, but you're hanging out with your friends and that's fine. Like come back when it's time for dinner or whatever. But as time's gone on, there's this idea of like stranger danger. And the book talks about this, about how children are missing out on building certain skills that you learn from playing outside and playing with your siblings and your friends and like problem solving together and just being honestly, I feel like you've covered quite a bit of what I wanted to ask you and learn about you. And I'm really excited about the work that you're doing. And I just want to say I really appreciate you and I'm excited to see where else life takes you. I was wondering, can we touch a little bit on like your creative outlets and is that connected to your gardening at all? So I know that you do create some artwork as well. Can you talk about that a little bit and if the two are
Yes.
related or not?
Yeah, I feel like I've been trying to relate it more. I've been painting like pretty much like since I was 7, but on and off, for years. Sometimes I go months without painting, and sometimes I'm like, okay, every day until 3 a.m. But I think I started off like painting faces and people. I just thought it was so interesting, like all the different things, like all the different folds we have as humans, from ears to just curves on our bodies. And so I was just like very interested by that. And that was like a big inspiration for me. And lately, like in the last year or two, like I've been getting more inspired to like, start painting more naturey things, more frogs and birds and things like that. And also just like reflecting like the urban environment that I live in too. I did last summer, I did a like horse summer saddle class. And it's because I love horses. I've always loved horses. So I was like, I really want to get back in touch with that. And so after that, I was like painting horse art, and like, yeah, so I've been doing some of that. I've just been honestly like been trying to paint things that make me happy and like more outdoor things because I think sometimes just as an artist, I'm like, because for a while I was like going to markets and like selling my art, and I obviously want to make money, so I want to paint things that people are gonna buy. So I'm like over here painting like Labubus and Snoopy and things like that. But also I'm like okay, that's cool, it's fun to do, but like just getting back in touch with like what I want to paint. And sometimes that looks like a lot slower. Like I'm not making a new painting every single day. Sometimes it's like one painting like a few months, or like maybe I start this one and then I get back to it like 6 months later. And in that time I work on something else. So I think it's really like evolved and changed and like grown a lot. And I'm honestly like really excited about it. I also like to use like a lot of different like vibrant colors and things. And yeah, like the most recent thing I painted was an egret in a wetland and a great blue heron. So I've really been enjoying that. I realized that I really like painting feathers. So I'm just going to keep playing around with that.
I found that I connect with artists the most when they're creating work that is tied to their own passions. And because when I do talk to an artist about a piece of work they've created and then they come to life describing like the story behind it, that is when I feel the most connected to their artwork. So I think like you got to just keep trusting the process and doing what brings you joy. Because otherwise, like you said, I mean, it's hard when you're doing what you love for work, whether it's the gardening or your artwork. And I feel the same way with the work that I do. I feel like I'm constantly trying to find that balance of how do I continue to pursue what I love while also making a living off of it. And yet the money, the monetary portion of it doesn't take away from like my passion. So I think it's tricky, but I hope you're able to figure it out. I did want to see if you want to plug your Instagram, your social media, and how we can connect more to your artwork? Do you have a website or anything?
Ugh, I don't have a website. So I finally updated my Etsy shop name. I just changed it. It took forever. But my Etsy shop is Rizalyn Art. That's it. It's Rizalyn art. And then my art Instagram that I'm trying to post some more on is Rizzy is Botanical. So Rizzie is Botanical. And those are like my main social. If you follow me on my private account, then hey, but yeah, those are the ones that I'm like trying to use more. But yeah, that's it.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate the shameless plug because I think your work is amazing from what I've seen and it's worth sharing. But other than that, that's pretty much all I have for you. I really appreciate you rolling with scheduling changes, the punches of like dealing with all of our technical issues that we have dealt with today. And before we wrap up, I just wanted to check and see if there's anything else that you wanted to share that you had in mind related to the podcast. I know you had some notes, so I just wanted to give you the space to share anything else that we haven't had a chance to touch on.
Yeah, I mean, I think I covered through my notes like a lot. So yeah, I barely have anything on here compared to what we talked about. So yeah, but
Yay.
thank you so much for everything that you're doing. And I just want you to know that you are so seen and the work that you're doing is so cool and you're inspiring me and probably like a lot of other people too. So just you keep doing what you're doing. I'm proud of you.
Yay. Oh, thank you so much. That really means a lot. And thank you again. Thank you for sharing your story. Let's stay connected. I want to hear about, I'll keep following along with what you're up to, but I could definitely see part two coming in the future, especially as your story continues to evolve and hearing all of the great work that you're doing. And I think that you're so community oriented. I can only imagine like, where that's going to take you, especially combined with your experience and your education right on top of that. You're going to do great things, and I can't wait to see what that looks like. So thank you for existing, thanks for being you, thanks for sharing your story and being vulnerable. And yeah, let's talk again soon. I have a feeling we'll have
Yeah,
more
I would
to
love that. Thank you so
talk
much, Deja. Oh my God.
Rizalyn, thank you so much for being a guest on Black and Wild, the podcast. It was so fun getting to know you better and hear about your journey with plants. Talking about your childhood reminded me of playing outside as a little girl, feeling like my backyard was its own world. Your story is a reminder that taking an unconventional path that isn't linear is okay because it's not just about the destination, but the journey along the way. And it seems like no matter where the opportunities you've experienced have taken you, it has all led you to where you are today. Keep shining and sharing that infectious enthusiasm. To check out Rizalyn's artwork, you can support her on Etsy at Rizalyn Art, Rizalynart. As always, be sure to check out blackandwild.com to read my latest vlogs, watch my previous vlogs and those that are going to be coming, and listen to all the episodes from season 1 and 2. I've got some things cooking, so you won't want to miss out on how the Black and Wild community will be expanding. This is my final episode for season 2. Thank you to everybody who's been along for the journey, and welcome to my new listeners. I can't wait to connect you more with stories from folks that come from underrepresented or marginalized backgrounds that you don't often hear about or see in outdoor spaces. And thank you for supporting this Black educated queen. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and follow all socials, and be sure to share your contact information so I can keep you up to date on how things are progressing. Until next time, thanks.